Welcome to the Nerd Journey Podcast. Our goal is to help you, the technology professional, accelerate your career progression, increase your job satisfaction, and be more effective in your existing role.
We want to bring listeners like you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers.
I'm John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, sharing co-host duties with Nick Cordy, at NetworkNerd_.
We're two former IT operations guys who have moved on to pre-sales roles with technology vendors. We have our opinions, but we also like to highlight the journeys of others and see what we can learn from them.
We'd also like to ask for your feedback to make this a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Email us at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com or DM us at nerdjourney on Twitter. So come join us on our nerd journey.
Let's take a trip.
All right, episode 334. This is John White flying solo again with Nick Cordy out on vacation. This week I'm going to talk about the considerations you should have as you consider a career in management. I feel like I'm uniquely positioned here to come on this as I wrap up 2.5 years as a first-time manager and look back at what I wish I knew going in, what I hope I can communicate to anyone considering becoming a manager. I'm definitely also going to synthesize some of the advice that we've heard from other managers on the program. Hopefully I can reference them by name as that information comes up. So think about the skills that make you great at your job right now. Maybe it's writing elegant code, closing a complex sale, designing a perfect user interface, or maybe being a sales engineer like me. That's your toolkit. So now I want you to imagine throwing that entire toolkit away. Your new toolkit contains navigating personality conflicts, delivering performance reviews, fighting for budget, hiring, maybe even firing someone, and the management overhead of meetings about strategy and tactics. Almost nothing you do day to day will be the thing that got you the promotion. This is the great unspoken skill swap of a management career. So if you're early in your career as a manager or considering a change into a managerial path, think of me as a fellow experimenter who experienced this transformation. I even thought I knew what the difference was, but the emotional experience of it is completely different. This episode is a teardown of the moments I realized my old skills or behaviors weren't applicable, and I had to learn a completely new job on the fly. We'll cover 3 areas where this skill swap was most jarring, maybe even 4 or 5. If you're considering this path, my goal is to give you a realistic preview of the daily reality, so you can decide if this new job description is one that you actually want. If you're in the early stages of walking this path, hopefully I can steer you around some of the traps. All right, so let's get to the teardown, learning the new job description. So teardown number 1, from doing the work to setting the context. The new job skill is communicating strategy and ensuring smooth operations. The discarded individual contributor skill, being the best individual contributor that you can be. So let me tell you a story about my instinct to fix things. I joined the team as the manager, and as in any sales organization, there's a series of reporting that you have to do. And my instinct, I knew it was the wrong instinct right away. I'll preface this, but my instinct was to immediately change the entire process. I knew what it was that we needed to do as far as entering information, administrative information on a weekly basis. I knew, it's super dependent on a team of, up to 10 people to all enter their information and how to make sure that everybody gets that done on a timely manner. And like I said, my instinct was to re-engineer the entire process, which I knew was not the right instinct. That's acting like the head practitioner and not the manager. So, here's the structure that I always advocate, right? Imitation comes before variation, comes before innovation. So that's the framework for as the method for learning this new skill, right? Your first job isn't to innovate on the work. You might not even understand the work. If, like me, you're joining as a first-time manager in a different organization that you were an individual contributor in. You have to create clarity and stability for the people doing the work. You crawl by first understanding why they're doing things the way that they are doing. You have to be able to clearly articulate that to yourself and to somebody else and have them critique your understanding, right? That's the crawl. You might have some walk and run later on as you find ways to maybe slightly tweak the process, or maybe even do like an entire overhaul eventually. But that's not the thing that you do at the beginning. Maybe there's managers that are hired into organizations to completely disrupt things, shake them up, but that's generally not you as a first-time manager. So that's the framework. Imitation before variation, before innovation. Understand what's going on, and then over time, you'll have the opportunity to change things slowly. Make small changes over time that add up to big changes. It's difficult to fight against that instinct that you might have as an individual contributor where you saw something and you were able to fix it. And as a manager, you might have that same instinct, and the process that you're engineering affects, like I said, maybe 10, 12, 20 other people. So big changes are a mistake. You have to understand what's going on and make small changes. Let's move on to teardown number 2. From finding the answer to finding the resources. So the new job skill that you have to learn is ensuring the team has the tools and connections that they need to do their job. The discarded individual contributor skill is having all the technical answers yourself. So this is my story, my experiment, right? I'm a new manager joining a new company in a role overseeing sales engineers, right? And I was never a sales engineer for this particular product in this particular company. So I knew going in that I was never going to be the technical expert at any one part of the product or portfolio. Everybody on the team was going to be ahead of me when it came to details on the technology. But my job was not to be an expert at the technology. My job was to be the person who managed the team and made sure that the people on the team had the resources and weren't blocked to do the job that they needed to do on a day-to-day basis. That's the job. So my instinct was to dive in and get certified and to know everything about the technology. And to a certain degree, like I needed to learn about the technology. But the most important thing that I needed to learn about was what the day-to-day processes were and problems that my team members were facing and how I could help them unblock those processes. Let me reframe that, right? The new job isn't to be the expert. It's to find the expertise within the organization. You might need to find somebody who can draw a map for you, right? When you're your first time manager, again, for me at a brand new organization, I didn't have the political connections or knowledge of the organization to understand where to go, to ask, to find out, and unblock some of these problems. So I had to actually rely on my team members to know where to go. And I had some great members on the team who had tons and tons of tenure, who knew how the organization worked and could draw maps for me. And more than one, right? different people had different maps of different parts of the organization. So that was super helpful. I had my peers, the other managers that rolled up to the director who oversaw us all with different levels of tenure. They could all help me by drawing maps to extend connections that they had, or, talk about ways that they had solved the same problem or similar problems that I was having in terms of unblocking tasks that my team members were finding blocked. So you need to find those people who can help you. The new skill is tapping into your team and your extended team's collective knowledge, right? So the question isn't, what's the answer, but who knows the answer? Who can I go to get some guidance on how to solve this problem? Teardown number 3, from individual contributor to organizational politician. So the new job skill is managing up and sideways to protect the team and secure resources. The discarded individual contributor skill is asking challenging questions in any form to find the best idea. So this is the story here. I've always found as an individual contributor, one of my superpowers was in meetings where information was being transmitted, that anytime somebody asked a question or opened things up for questions and I didn't understand something, that I would ask and I would say, I don't understand this part, or, maybe you explained this and I just didn't understand it, but, can you explain it again? And I was always fairly sure that I wasn't the only person who had that question, but I was also fearless in thinking that it didn't matter if I was the only one with this question, that it was still important to ask because maybe people hadn't even thought about this question to ask. As an individual contributor, this is, sometimes it's celebrated, right? It's critical thinking. It's asking fearless questions. It's, especially in the job of sales engineer, you kind of have to ask those difficult questions of the customers that you're serving, because you need to know the answers and you need to understand their thinking and their motivation. But inside leadership, that's not necessarily a good thing. As a leader, in a meeting of other leaders, that's not necessarily a good thing. This can be viewed as being confrontational. It can be viewed as not being a team player. It can be viewed as setting a critical tone. So before you ask difficult questions in a leadership meeting, you should probably learn the leadership culture of the organization. You should probably spend time gaining credibility as somebody who only asks questions when it's really important. You should probably learn the chain of command to ask those types of questions and how to get them answered, rather, outside of a large meeting rather than in one. There's probably a chain of command and a way to ask questions and get them answered. So let me reframe this, right? And talk about it as a new skill. You're now a representative of your team in a larger political ecosystem. So the new skill is understanding influence, timing, and venue. You have to learn to have the tough conversations privately. You have to learn to build consensus before a big meeting. You have to learn how to navigate who to ask questions to and when, and who can effectively answer those questions and really clarify, critically important things in an effective manner. This is a core concept of ensuring your team has what they need, because you might need those questions answered. But the important thing is getting them answered in a way that doesn't undercut your place in the hierarchy, or, by implication, undercut somebody else's thinking and motivations for decisions that they've made. You have to learn to get things done. So teardown number 4, from did I have a good day to how can I help? The new job is measuring success through the output of others. The discarded individual contributor skill is the daily satisfaction of completing your own tasks and knowing exactly what the map to getting projects done is. So let me talk about the experience of being a manager. Sometimes you can have back-to-back meetings, just solid all day long. And you can end that day going, maybe asking yourself, like, what did I even do today? As an individual contributor, you can know if you had a good day. You got things done. You have progress on individual projects. As a manager, you often don't have any of those things. You have a vague notion that teams are making progress, but you don't have individual insight into individual projects and how they're progressing. And you don't necessarily want to ask those questions every single day and micromanage those processes. So let me reframe this. Your most important task is probably your one-on-one meetings. This is your most powerful meeting. And the most powerful and important thing that you have to do on a daily basis. The most powerful question you can ask is, how can I help? You shift from being a doer to an unblocker. And your long-term success is the sum of your team's intermediate successes. A good day is when you leave your team members more clear, capable, and confident than you found them. You're enabling them to get the job done. And that is your job. Teardown number 5. Transitioning from interviewer to owner of the entire hiring process. The new job skill is being responsible for hiring someone, including the entire hiring process and experience for all of the candidates. The discarded individual contributor skill, just occasionally helping out with interviews. So here's the story. When you own the entire hiring process, you have to own it. And when I say the entire process, I mean from the job description on. I mean, yes, there's a template probably, but does it describe the job that you need done and the person that you need to do it? Who are you collaborating with? A recruiter? A budget approver? A hiring approver? A cross-functional interviewing team, including members of your team? What are their individual schedules? What about the process? How many interviews are there going to be? By whom? How do you make sure everyone is measuring the things that you need measured, much less on the same scale as each other? Is everyone even available to do the interviews in a timely fashion on top of their other work? If you have to swap out people for different interviewees, how do you ensure consistency between those different people doing those same type of interviews? This is a really, really complex problem. Do you understand the market of the different geographies that you might be hiring in? Let me reframe this, and maybe this isn't even necessary, but you do now own the entire hiring process. You are the one who coordinates the resources. You're responsible for the entire project. And you have to make sure the person that you hire is successful after you hire them, right? So owning the hiring process also means owning the onboarding process and owning the success of that person as they get up to speed. That's all your responsibility. What does it feel like to have enough information on any given candidate? What skills do you need that person to show you during an interview process? What weaknesses does the candidate have? And we all have weaknesses, right? But you have to compare the weaknesses and gaps that every candidate has against each other and against what you think the job needs to have to get done. And what does training time for each of those gaps look like? So hopefully, these individual teardowns have helped you understand the challenges that I faced as a first-time manager. And hopefully they resonate for you if you are early walking down that path as a first-time manager. But let me get to the third part of this discussion, the synthesis. hopefully how you build your new toolkit. So the core question, right? If your entire job changes, how do you actually develop these new skills? And how do you do it maybe before you even have the role? So I have some recommendations here. The first is start observing. Watch your current manager like an anthropologist. Don't just see what they do, but think about why they're doing things the way they do it. Why do they structure meetings in the way that they do? Why do they have a specific person chosen for specific projects? You're trying to decode that job before you apply for it and before you actually have to do it. Become an interviewer. Take managers that you spec'd out for coffee. I'm talking about interviewing the managers about their jobs, not being part of interviewing panels. Ask those managers about the parts of the job that you never see. Like, what was your hardest performance conversation? How do you advocate for your team during budget season? How do you showcase the success of the individual team members? Find low-stakes practice. Volunteer to lead small cross-functional projects. Mentor junior employees. You're looking for opportunities to practice the skills of influence and guidance without formal authority. So here's a call to action. Let's perform your first micro-experiment. This is the very first step in building a new skill set, right? Your first experiment is simple. The next time that you're on a team call or team meeting and you have the answer to something, hold it. Don't give the answer. Your new job is not to provide the answer. It's to guide the team to their own answer. Only use questions. And afterwards, notice how it feels. That feeling of guiding and not doing, that's a core sensation of being a manager, the job that you're considering doing. So if you find it frustrating and you don't like that feeling, think about that. Do it more than once and see how people react to it. Are they annoyed? How are you making other people feel? Maybe you have an ally in your team meetings and you let them know what you're going to do ahead of time. And you ask them for their reaction, whether what you were doing was effective or not. And let me know how these experiments go. So let's reiterate. The move to management isn't a step up. It's a step over into a brand new career. The skills don't transfer, but they can be learned. And at the same time, the skills that you had aren't completely useless, right? You still need to know what good looks like so that when you hire somebody, you can make a judgment. And when you performance manage somebody, you can make a judgment. But more importantly, if you're thinking about moving your career in this direction, start learning those skills now. And that way, you can know whether you enjoy doing it and you can make the choice with confidence.
Just a reminder, we'd like people to subscribe and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. We want to know if we're being helpful and are always looking for interesting questions to ponder. We're collectively on Twitter @NerdJourney.
Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White @BJourneyman, for Nick Cordy @NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.